Hi everyone, Dave here and welcome to a new lesson. Today we're going to look at the third lick I posted on my Instagram page. This lick is taken from a Shawn YouTube video where he is demonstrating the Petitjean chime pedal. Can barely say that. For those who just want to learn the lick, I'll show that right at the start of the video, but hang around if you want to get a better idea of the concept behind the lick and how we can expand on it. I've also put together a solo at the end of the video based on that concept so you can hear it fleshed out some more. Before we get started, I just want to mention that there is a bunch of stuff I post on my Instagram page that doesn't show up here on YouTube, so do go over there and check it out. Also, if you like the backing track I use for this lesson, you can find it over on my Bandcamp page. I will post all the links below. Okay, let's get on with the lesson. So, the lick is over a C7 chord, so it's mainly, you could think of it like you would normally play kind of minor pentatonics, but in this case, he's playing a lot from the diminished scale. So I'm just going to go over the lick first of all, and then I'll talk about the diminished scale and how it relates to this chord afterwards. Okay, so the basic lick. Do it again. Right, so the way he plays it is quite straightforward. I'll go through the notes, then I'll go through the picking and the slurs and whatnot. So it's 11 on the B, 9/8 on the first string E, then 11/10 on the B, 11G, then 8B, 9/8 on the G, then we go 11 on the D, then 8/7 on the D, a little slide, 10 on the A, and then 6 on the A with a little quarter tone bend. So they're the notes. You can see it all up on the tab anyway, so I'm sure this is, but for those who aren't great at reading tab, I thought I'd just go over it like that. Okay, now the way he picks it is he goes down up, so he's crossing strings, followed by pull off, then he goes up, down, up, down, up, pull off, up, down, slide, up, and then down on the last note. So that's the way Shawn Tubbs plays it. There is one other way to do it. Well, there's one other way that I sometimes play this, and that's with hybrid picking. So it's the same set of notes. It's got the same slides and the same kind of pull-offs, but the picking, I pick down, and then I use my middle finger whenever I'm crossing back to a higher string. So down, middle finger, down, down, then middle finger, down, up, down, up, down. So it's only really the middle of the lick, the start of the lick, where I use that hybrid picking, but it means that there's a few more slurs in it, and it just gives it a slightly different sound. Oh, that's pointing in the right place. Slightly smoother maybe. Also, I find whenever you're using hybrid picking, the tone of the finger makes an impact as well on the overall sound. Okay, so that's basically the lick. Now I'll just talk about the idea behind it. He's basically using the diminished scale, and it's the half whole scale that he's using. So that means that if I'm starting on C, the pattern goes like this. It's just going to go half a step and then a whole step, and then it just carries on that interval. So half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step. And that's a diminished scale. It's what we call a symmetrical scale because of the way the intervals keep repeating. Now, against the chord, that gives us an interesting sound because if I talk about it in terms of intervals relating to the chord, obviously you've got your root, flat 2 or flat 9, sharp 9, or you could think of it as a flattened third, major third. Then you could think of this as a flat 5 or a raised 4th, 5, major 6, and then a flat 7. So when you play diminished licks over over dominant 7th chords, you're getting some flat 9s and some sharp 9s or flat thirds. And that's kind of a really kind of jazz thing to do. Normally you hear jazz guitarists play this over dominant, normally altered dominant 7th chords. But when you put it over a normal one, you're just kind of implying that harmony over the top. And it's a great way if you want to sound a little bit more outside and you want to break out of the regular kind of blues licks that you might already know. Because most of the time we'd probably use the minor pentatonic to play over like a dominant 7th chord, and maybe major pentatonic as well, of course, is the other one. But for most blues players, they would opt for the minor pentatonic. Excuse me, and they might and very common is to go mix the major and minor thirds on that. When you put the extra notes that you get from the diminished scale, you get this flat 9, which is the really outside thing. The major 6, which is really cool. And then you get the flat 5 or raised 4th, which you also see in the blues scale, being fair. So, there's some interesting things that you can get out of that. And you don't have to put in a great deal. You probably want to, if you're trying to do this more in the style of people like Shawn Tubbs or Robin Ford, you would probably mainly stick to, your Mixolydian or your blues licks, and then just occasionally throw in a little bit of diminished in there, especially that flat 9. That's the one that really tweaks your ear, I think. Kind of gives it that real kind of fusion outside flavour. Okay, so probably the other thing I'd say about this lick that I like is that it doesn't start right on the beat, it starts on the second half of the beat. And I find that these sort of licks where they start, somewhere else within the beat are sometimes more useful because they're a little bit more, they're easier to integrate. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but I find that it kind of gives you that little breathing space before you launch into the lick. And that can be useful. It all sounds pretty cool as well. And if you listen to Shawn Tubbs' original solo, I will put a link in the description. There's a lot of licks that he plays that are kind of off the beat or just before the beat, and they sound great. And this is another one of those where it starts, on the second half of beat 1. So it's like 1. Yeah, very cool. The other thing I like about this particular lick, it doesn't just run down the scale. It doesn't do that. It kind of skips a few notes, and that big part is scale based. But then he does this where you get this little minor third going down in parallel. You could carry that further down if you wanted to. But I think just a little bit of that is nice. Then he goes down the scale a little bit more, and then he skips a note. He actually skips the C. Doesn't play that one. Goes straight to the flat 7, down to the 6, and then ends on that nice blues bend that you typically find in loads of blues licks. So yeah, really great. So if you want to kind of listen to more of this sort of playing, I'd recommend Shawn Tubbs, obviously, but Robin Ford is another guy that does a lot of this sort of thing in his lead playing, and well worth checking out his instructional DVDs. They have a lot of this sort of information on them. Okay, guys, I think that's about it. Probably one other thing I'll probably mention is for those who use a Line 6 Helix, that's what I'm using today. And sound wise, obviously I'm using my Les Paul. I've got it on the bridge pickup. And amp model wise, I'm using the Litigator, which is like their version of a Dumble amp, which is again is very much more in keeping with the Robin Ford sound. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, get a lot from it, and I will see you for one again real soon.